Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on May 1st, 2021 at roughly 6:50 a.m. PST. I mentioned yesterday I was going to get a little more organized, at least that was the intention. So, I've done pretty much that, I hope. Time will tell. But, let's start right at the beginning and on how to make this happen. We're going to go through this one step at a time. So, we start with the beginning, the obvious issue, at least to me. Where does everything start? How does it get moving? Okay, so we're going to talk about energy today and how the whole physical manifestation process comes into existence. Everything starts with a thought. Okay, in other words, before you can do anything, you've got to have, and I'm not talking a thought in your brain. I'm talking a thought in your heart, in your soul, however you want to phrase it, but outside the physical realm. That's where it all begins. Okay, I'm referring to before anything in the physical world even begins to look at it. So we start with a thought. For instance, the idea of changing your life from where it is right now, regardless of how you got to where you are. How you got to where you are doesn't really matter. It matters in as much as it explains who you are, but it doesn't change where you are. Whatever happened in the past, it's there. There is absolutely nothing you can do about it. And one day I will make the time to explain why time travel, going backwards in time and changing things, doesn't work. Why it is literally an issue of once it's done, it's done. You cannot undo it. There is a logical way to explain that, and that is one of the things that I have to make certain that I do. Which is why I keep this little pad beside me. Okay, so I'm just making a note to make sure that I get to that. Now, it starts with a thought. Once that thought is formed outside the body, we are not talking your brain, not yet. It starts outside the body. Okay, in what you would call your soul, the spirit realm, the netherworld, whatever. Call it what you will, just remember it's outside the physical body where it all begins. Much like when you're driving a car, before the car changes direction, the driver, you, have to make an adjustment to which way the car is going. Same thing applies where it comes to your physical body. Before you can make any adjustments, the driver, your soul, has to make a shift. Now, I know some of you are going to sit there and go, I don't believe in the whole soul thing. You don't have to. We'll catch up to that in a little bit, and we'll start you off in the mind. Okay, in the physical mind, because that's the next step. Okay, just understand, there is always somebody in better shape, there's always somebody in worse shape. Okay, it doesn't really matter where everybody else is. What matters is what shape you're in. So the first place it starts is in the spirit world, in the soul. Okay, outside of the physical body. And again, you don't have to believe me. You don't even have to believe in it. The reality is, you don't have to believe in gravity for it to play havoc. Okay, once that thought has formed, it trickles into the physical body in the form of an emotional imperative. You have this feeling or this urge to do something. You may not know what that urge is. You just know there's something that's missing. You want to discover something. You desire to track something down. You desire to make an alteration because you're not content with something. There is this emotional urge. Okay. For instance, have you ever walked into a kitchen and gone, I'm really hungry. I know I'm hungry, but I don't know what I desire to eat. I only know that I'm hungry. It's an emotional imperative. Okay. Then once you get through that emotional drive, that thing that pushes you, and there's no logic to it. Well, there is logic to it, but that's a long story. But the emotional drive is something that you may not be able to explain at the time. What's wrong? I don't know. There's just something off. Ever hear that term before? I know for a certainty I have. So you get that emotional imperative. I'm hungry. I desire something. I may be hungry for food. I may be hungry for knowledge. I may be hungry for experience or an adrenaline rush. There's any number of things that you can do, that you can be hungry for in different ways. But you get that hunger that I desire something to change. And until that hunger hits, you're not going to do a whole lot. Somebody can sit there and tell you this needs to change, but if you don't feel it, you're not doing it. Talk to any patient of any doctor where the doctor has said, do this because you need to. Okay, how many people have you heard of that the doctor has said, you gotta quit smoking. Smoking is bad for your health. Okay, and yet the person will continue smoking even though they know it's bad for their health. Okay, they will turn around and carry on smoking because the emotional imperative is not there. Once that emotional imperative is there, that's when things start to get interesting. Looking for my glasses in case you're wondering. My eyes don't work absolutely perfect, but once your emotional imperative is there, now your brain kicks into gear. And this is where things start to make sense to those of you that don't believe in the soul. Okay, you've got the emotional drive now. You've got that thing. I desire to have something. I don't know what it is, but I'm hungry for something. Now the logical side kicks in, and you go through the process of elimination. What is it that, do I desire this food? No, that doesn't do anything for me. Do I desire this course in school? No, it doesn't really hold my attention. And you keep going through it until you finally, by process of elimination, you figure out what it is you're looking for. Okay. Then you go, okay, I desire, like, let's try a child's case. Looking at the top of the staircase. I desire to get to the top of the stairs. I want to go up there. So how do I do it? So now you go through the logical process, sometimes, quite often, by trial and error, to figure out how to actually make that happen. Okay. Whether it's, I'm hungry, I'm sitting on the couch, and I desire food. Whether it's ask somebody else to do it for you, which, by the way, works, but does not really do what it try that again. Asking somebody else to do something for you will work, but you will not evolve your own skills. Okay, the only way you evolve your own skills, the only way you can attain success is through your own personal effort. So when you start going through the possibilities, the process of elimination, to figure out what you can do to make things happen. Okay, what am I personally capable of doing? Now, this may get complicated because you may not be capable because of a lack of skill. If you don't have the skill already, then you turn and ask somebody else how to do it and learn the skill from them so you can do it the next time. Hence where the comment of if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach a man to fish, you feed him for life. Well, the idea is simple. If you do something for somebody, sure, that will get the thing for them. But they'll have to ask somebody else again how to do that. Okay, ask anybody that does not know how to read how often they have to ask somebody else to read something for them because they require it in modern society, at least in modern Western society. Okay, if you desire your independence, you kind of got to figure out how to read. Okay, so you go and ask somebody how to do something in order to figure it out. Then you start working out what you've got to do, and you go through the steps to build whatever it is you're aiming for. Okay, to get that food, to get the education. Once you've got that logical plan, that logical path laid out, now we get into the physical manifestation thing. Okay, because now you can start building what you desire. Okay, And the reality behind that is once you've built it, now you can move on to the next step. And yes, this is a very quick rundown. I mean, there's only so many different ways you can tell somebody it starts this way. But the reality of it is, once you've got a logical path that you can replicate, meaning you can do this same thing over and over again. Okay, until you get into really complicated things, once you figure out that 1 plus 1 equals 2, okay, every time you go to add 1 plus 1, you're going to come up with 2. When you figure out that holding a nail in place and hitting it with a hammer drives it deeper into the wood, once you figure out the angle on that, you can repeat it time and time again and get the same result. This is what I mean by replication. You find a way that you can repeat the process over and over again if you have to. Now, personally, if I get my, not if, okay, when I get my office and everything else running smoothly, I won't have to alter it again. Okay, at least not if I do it right. I mean, things always change. The only consistency in the existence, so much for English. The only consistency in English is the only consistency in existence is change. Now, people talk about change being painful, change being, frightening. Every time you speak to somebody, you're making a change. And I'm betting dollars to donuts it doesn't hurt to speak for most of you. Some people it does. But for most of you, speaking doesn't hurt. Talking doesn't hurt. And in all fairness, whether you're seeing something or hearing something, every time you take in a new piece of information, it's a change. And let's face it, I don't see a whole lot of people writhing on the ground in agony because of the input. Okay, now there are ways of making that happen, but that's beside the point. So, very simply, you start with a thought, it comes down to an emotional imperative. If you don't believe in a soul, then that emotional imperative is where things start. Okay, because the emotion is part of the mind. So, the physical mind. So you get that emotional imperative. Once you've got that seated and you know there's a drive there and you can connect with it and you can say, yes, I've got this drive. I know the direction I've got to go. Okay. Now you're into the logical interpretation, the actual planning of it. You're into the intellectual side of physical manifestation. And you identify what that urge is, you identify what that missing thing is, and you figure out where it is you're heading, what the goal is. Now, I was told when I was growing up that you have to have a goal in life by the time you're 20 to get things in order. Okay, which is a really acute thought. And it's a great idea, but the reality of what I've seen is that the massive majority of people are in their late 40s to early 50s when they figure out what they desire to do. Okay, so you get that logical directive down. Okay, there's where I'm heading. Now you work out, usually through trial and error, or by talking to somebody to figure out if a path you're thinking of is likely to work. And again, whenever you strive to do something, talk to somebody else that has done it successfully in order to make it happen. Okay, now, with that in mind, once you've got that plan in place, now you start implementing the plan, making the changes, making the steps towards whatever your goal was. Okay, and we are now into the world of physical manifestation. Okay, this is where you have taken the thought, drawn it into the material world, and made it manifest. Once you've got the physical side, now you're starting to work on the physical process. And that's where other people can now see what you're doing. Okay, if you choose to show them. Okay, now this is why I keep coming back to this idea of a notepad. Okay, of keeping a list of the little goals you've got. It's not for my benefit. I mean, my list of goals is for my benefit. But for your benefit, if you keep the list, if you ever desire to show somebody something, and I'll cover that in a minute as well, there's another aspect to that. But giving it physical form is so that you can either utilize it without going through all the process of rebuilding it again. Okay, it's kind of like cooking a large vat of chili or something like this. Cook it all at once, and you package it up. Now you don't have to cook it again. It's ready to go. Okay, so now you've got the physical manifestation down, and you've got things moving. Now here's the thing with energy. Okay, when we're starting with thought, now understand something very important. Okay, you're in the middle. Okay, now energy travels out in every direction. Now this is only two-dimensional, obviously, but it travels in every direction, all the way around a complete 360 globe. Okay, at the bottom you'll see I've got an arrow on both ends of that line. That's because energy, unlike electricity, energy goes both directions at once. So the problem that you run into is this. Now, people keep trying to say, oh, I'm going to, I'll change the direction it's going. You cannot stop energy from moving. Kind of like you can't stop water from moving. You can redirect it, but you cannot stop it. Okay, for those of you that think you can, look back to the Ice Age. You can freeze it and slow it down, but you certainly aren't going to stop it. So, if we take a look at this, okay, here's the energy running forward. If you put a block here, what's going to happen is that energy is going to go on its own accord around either end, or it's going to go over top of it. Or worse, from your standpoint perhaps, it's going to turn around and it's just simply going to go the other direction. It's just going to back up because it's not going to worry about what you really desire. However, if you put the block at an angle, the energy will now shift direction and go the direction you desire it to go. Okay, that's where you take control of what the energy is doing. You go, okay, I require the energy over here. By setting your blocks in place, you can guide where energy goes, but you can't stop it. If you try and stop it, it will find a way to do its own thing. Okay, nature will find a way, and if you try and stop it, it's going to find its own way. Okay, it's kind of like if we look back to the old story about the boy in the dam. I do stumble over my words. I do stumble over my words, rather, which is why why I'm not reading, why I'm not doing my own books in audio. But you can stop it in one place, but it will overflow. Okay, it will find a way around it. But if you put the block at an angle so that you can guide where the energy goes, it's very much like a dam. Beavers build a dam in the middle of a river, and they flood the entire area. Of course, beavers don't care. They want the water. Okay. They're not interested in making the river go to a certain place. However, people have this idea of, let's make it go where we desire it, hence how we get irrigation. It's not by stopping the water. Okay, if you just stop the water like the beavers do, you've got a rice paddy. Okay, if you're looking for a water flow, you've got to guide the water by putting a partial dam in the way, by angling it so the water will find its way, so the energy will find its way in the direction you desire it to go. Now, this does not mean all of the energy will go that direction, but it does mean that enough of it will go that direction you can work with it. So you guide your energy where you're aiming for. Okay, and by doing that, you'll start to manifest the world that you desire. You'll start eliminating the things you're not content with. And I should have done this before, so I'm going to do it now. Well, I can do it without actually standing up. That's always nice. Now, I've shown you this a while back. This is that sign that I keep telling you I've got. We have attained a minimum of $2,116 by May 31st of 2021, at 23:59, also known as 1 minute to midnight. Now, last month, I had this, in April, I had this of making $2,000. Well, the reality is I made my $2,000. Okay. I mean, this was what I actually generated, which for me was absolutely great. Okay, but now I've changed it. Now with me, I've upped this number. I've upped what I desire to have to run my own household. This way, I'm increasing the energy flow that I'm looking for to bring material prosperity. Okay, this month is the month that really is going to make a difference for me, because this is the one that I've got everything slowed down. I've done everything I needed to. And therefore, I'm going to modify. I'm going to now be able to start building and getting things moving in the right direction. I'll tell you, I cut it awful close. I brought in, for me, a staggering amount of money at the beginning of this year. Okay, and I wiped out most of it. Now, the greater majority is in investments. Okay, because like you, I've got to look to the future as well. But now I'm looking at the present. The future is mostly set in motion. Well, it's already set in motion. I've done what I can. But at this point, I'm taking the concept of physical manifestation, and like I told you, the tools I offer you are the same tools I personally use. Hence, why I'm showing you this. This is literally the sign that I have hanging on my wall up above me. Now, I will hang it back up after I get off, so I don't have to stand up. Okay, at least you don't have to stand up before I get off the video. By setting that bar a little higher, I intend on having a better income this month than I did last month. Okay, now there's a lot of things that I can do to make that happen. But that's where it starts. And now it's a case of just making certain I stay on top of it. Just like you, find something that you're not content with. Now, the only person on the planet that can be successful for you is you. You can get all the help, all the guidance you desire, but if you're not doing the work, your life isn't going to change. If you're in a relationship, it requires both parties to put equal effort. Okay, now this balances out over time. For instance, think of it this way. Somebody has to make dinner. Whether you go out for dinner, whether you make it in the house, doesn't matter. Somebody's got to make it. And many of you do not have a kitchen big enough to have 3 and 4 people in. So one of you is going to have to deal with that. The other one can do something else around the house. Okay, or do something to handle the finances, that sort of thing. But it's a balance point where you both have to put effort. And understand where communication is concerned. Okay, and with over 80,000 clients under my belt, frankly, I've never seen a situation where communication was not a two-way problem. It was not a 50-50 issue. Because either you're saying something ineffectively and the other person isn't getting it, or you're saying it great, but for whatever reason, they're not understanding it. Okay, now I heard it put one day by a teacher, there are no poor students, only poor teachers. Okay, well, I did come to the conclusion that it's not 100% correct, because there are students out there are people out there that do not desire to change. They tell you they want to change, they tell you they desire to change, but they really don't desire it. They desire the world to take care of them. And that it does take people like that, and people on the other end that desire to take care of everybody, to get this world working. But it is a combination of everybody's effort. Now, I know some of you are going to go, see, I can sit back and do nothing and the world will still carry on. Well, it will. It absolutely will. But are you going to be happy when you realize that the only way you can get something done is rely on somebody else completely? I know there's a lot of people I've talked to, especially when when they've had an accident or they get a little older, where they're going, I can't do what I used to do, and that upsets me. Okay, I'll tell you, the best thing I could have done was shift gears with my left arm. You know, when I decided to move my coffee over to the left side, it forced me to use this arm a lot more, because in case you hadn't noticed, I drink a fair chunk of coffee. Well, actually, you couldn't tell that. All you know is I've got something there that I drink. And for all you know, it could be an empty cup. But, not likely. In any event, once you realize that you're the one that has to take all of that stuff, that thought, the emotional drive, the intellectual calculation, and the physical effort, once you've got that, okay, that is when you run into things changing on a positive level. Okay. Now, if everybody turns around and does their part to straighten out their own life, what we'll end up with is these little itty-bitty pockets that will grow to an overall improvement. Okay. Now, because of that, when you're looking at that side of it, as we all start to change things, I don't know about you, but I'm really tired of the wars, of the conflict, of the deception, of the greed, of the famine. I'm tired of it all. Now, I can only do so much on my own. My goal with these videos is to spread the word to everybody out there that we can actually make this world a better place for everybody. And rest assured, for those of you that haven't tried it, don't. It is easier to work on something if you're not worried about bombs going off or people shooting you. Okay, far easier to concentrate. Okay, now many parents have run into a problem where they're trying to get a child, and whether it's an adult child or a young child, if you've got too much noise going on around you, okay, it's hard to concentrate. So you turn off the TV, you turn off the music, whatever, and you go, okay, focus on this. Okay, picture that with bullets that can kill you. Okay, it's time to stop the fighting. It's time for the religious people to sit back and go, okay, yes, fear is real, but fear is not the way to run a world. It doesn't work well. Okay, we've been doing it for literally hundreds of thousands, well, let's just go with thousands of years. For thousands of years, people have been living on fear. They have been propagating fear, they've been promoting fear. There's been this tiny little sound in the background going, but can't we just love one another and get along? Well, the answer is, can we? Yes. Are you willing to? Are you, as an individual, willing to do so? That's a question that only you have the answer to. When you reach the point of being willing to, that's when your life starts to change. And you can blame anybody out there you desire. Okay, remember, energy out, energy in. If you carry on blaming other people for your complications, other people are going to turn around and blame you. Okay, now, it's absolutely bizarre one day, at least I found it bizarre. I got accused of being completely off my nut because I suggested people get along and start talking to each other as equal individuals. Because in my opinion, every single person out there is worth the same thing. They are all worth the same amount. And we are not talking about finance. Granted, some people have more money. I have more money than some people. I'm still living in my house. Okay, or my apartment anyway. But I know of one chap that I met that is living on the street and has way more money than I have. Okay, and he hangs on to it in his own fashion. But money doesn't tell you somebody's worth. It's the way they treat people that tells you what they're worth. Okay, so what we're looking at here is it is time for everybody to start working together. Now, that said, we're hitting the 30-minute mark, so I'm going to let you go. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you can get to all the rest of the videos coming out, and spread the word. It's time we work together. My personal goal is to reach everybody on the planet, whether they've got video or not. Okay, and that relies on you talking to the people around you. So give us a thumbs up, please. Subscribe to our channel and share the daylights out of it. And I will be back again tomorrow. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.